Great. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the fourth and last session of Digital Dialogues in this fourth series by Toolbox India. My name is Mimansa Bhandari, and I work as a lead associate for the impact practice at Social Lens. Today, we're joined by Sebastian Leidich, the co-founder and head of product at Arm Digital, a social tech startup based in Germany. He has a master's degree in computer science and is very passionate about social impact, education, and social work. And as part of the student initiative Engineers Without Borders, he worked as a program manager of an education-based nonprofit right here in Kolkata. And I think it was this experience that led him to establish Arm Digital, which is a case management software for nonprofits. Welcome to this session, Sebastian.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks so much for having me, and I'm excited to share some of my insights to help everybody along here.
Great. So in this session, we want to talk to Sebastian about some of the most commonly observed challenges that nonprofits face and the decisions that they need to make in their data and tech journey. So to start off with, Sebastian, we know that a large number of nonprofits in India, especially grassroots organizations, were, at least until recently, largely managing their data on paper rather than through digital means. And, Sebastian might have observed this in your experience in Kolkata as well. And the pandemic just sort of forced a lot of organizations to either begin their data journey or at least accelerate the data adoption process. So as a lot of organizations are in this stage of transition, what would you say are some of the key things that they must bear in mind as they begin or step up their digitization journey? Are there any steps that they should take?
Yeah, right. And I think it's a big challenge for a lot of these organizations. I mean, at the core of what you all do is working with people and not handling technology. So that's a big switch you need to care about. But I think it's a big difference whether you're starting your data journey in general or whether you already have processes that work on paper, or maybe you have some at least basic Excel sheets or Google Sheets where some of your information is there. And I assume most of you already have that. So in that case, I would really go from where you already are and build upon these existing processes, and not too hard to really in small steps move that more and more digital. Take some of your paper forms and maybe create an Excel sheet to just collect that information and make it more usable. There's a lot you can already do with some of these basic things without having huge change processes and building your own software systems. And and then when you have made that first step, probably a lot of ideas will come your way on how to improve that further, what information is actually important for you and which one you need to make more accessible. So I think 2 points I would really focus in when planning out this. One is to go step by step and not try to do everything at once. And the other is to prioritize your goals. What is the data that you actually need, and take your team along with that also, because the greatest system and software is useless if maybe just 1 or 2 people in the organization are using that and everybody else is left out and overwhelmed by it. And if you have a process taking everybody along, I think nowadays there's great systems out there that really the whole team can use this, and it's not just maybe one M&E officer who can make use of the data. But it's certainly an effort, and you need to plan that in also to have somebody who in the first months really reminds everybody to use the new system and get that on board. So it's not so different from maybe other changes you might make to your program in that sense, I think.
Right. I think, these are, definitely some of the broad considerations that organizations should keep in mind as they become more digital. Coming to data collection, Sebastian, we sort of see developments every day in the ways organizations can collect data. And one of these latest ways through which they can capture data, especially community data, is WhatsApp. So we wanted to understand this a bit, what kind of data can we collect through WhatsApp? How secure is this method of data collection? And when would you recommend collecting data this way?
Right. And I think WhatsApp is a great example on how you can make a first easy step towards digital data collection, because probably even your most remote field worker nowadays is using WhatsApp on their personal side already. So it's very easy for everybody to get on board with that and use it, rather than having a big training on a complex software, and then you have to overcome all these barriers. And starting where you already are and where your team is I think the best advice anybody can give. In terms of like practicality, I think it's a great first step, but then of course it has its limits in how you can really make use of the data and analyze that. The common way I see WhatsApp being used is maybe even like building upon the paper-based system that people in the field take a picture of the paper form they filled out or the attendance list and then sending that to their manager. And that way it becomes very easy and quick to collect all the data from your different locations. And that's a great use of digital tools already. But of course, that still means then somebody has to sit in the office and actually maybe type that into a different system to make it more usable. So there's limits on how much you can do and automate with that, although of course, there is specialized systems also, but if you look into like WhatsApp integrations with other management software, often it becomes quickly very complex and expensive. Also, that usually enterprise level tools that charge more towards like sales and marketing organizations. Although there is tools also for the nonprofit sector. Glyphic is one example, who build like chatbot platform for NGOs. So that could be a great tool if you directly interact with your beneficiaries through WhatsApp. And then, of course, if that's automated and there's actually a software system behind that storing all these messages, you can do a lot of analysis also and really see who is responding to what and collect information. On the other hand, if the NGO's work is more towards really being in person in the field in an offline environment, then maybe WhatsApp is a good first step to collect data. But in the longer run, it might be more interesting to have a specialized information system. So Digital, the company I am working at, was really focused on doing case management in the sense of building all this information that might come together around one beneficiary you support, from like school history, personal development, attendance, and visualizing that in one place so you can work with it. That, of course, is very difficult to do in a chat platform like WhatsApp. So maybe as a later step, then when you realize you want to do more with the data that you collect, then another system might be more useful. And in terms of security, I mean, WhatsApp has some basic encryptions and things, but of course, it's still on the personal phones, mostly of your team. So I think it can easily be like shared if the device is shared around. So if this is very confidential data, this might not be the best platform to share that. You need to be aware on how that might be also accidentally reshared and exposed. But in general, to get things rolling, I think it's quite a good start to also experience the power of technology there.
That's very helpful to understand, Sebastian. Thank you for that. And picking up on a point that you mentioned around security, we know that nonprofits collect a lot of sensitive data, especially beneficiary data, and maintaining privacy and security of this data is, of course, of utmost importance. So, as founder of Arm Digital as well, what do you feel are the larger considerations around data privacy and data security that usually software developers and tech solution providers largely look at in the design of tech solutions?
Right. Yeah. And I think in the beginning of digital tools, people didn't worry too much about it, but now we hear a lot of also horror stories of how data was shared and exposed, or what can all go wrong. So it's good that finally everybody is getting some awareness about that, and that's especially in our sector here in the social space, I think something we need to keep in mind to not do any harm with the work that we're doing. So on the technical side, what we as a software provider think of is a lot of the technical standards and best practices, things like encrypting the connections so that like hackers cannot access the data on the fly, or making sure that the servers and firewalls are set up that there's a high level of security to that. And in that sense, I think it's important if you work with software to work with professionals. There's also some homegrown solutions, and maybe NGOs building their own system. And I think like using basic tools like Google Sheets to build a system is a good first step. But then once you really build your own software, it becomes dangerous also, because often as an NGO, you don't have the resources to really look at all the technical standards and best practices to protect that system well. But I mean, that's the one side of it that is on the tech providers, and a lot of the players in the market, I think, are doing a really good job in that. And the other side really is also on how you use the software, and how your team is aware of basic IT security practices. And often I think that is the entry point for problems with data exposure that are much more common. So things like having regular security updates on your devices, whether it's the Windows or your Android phone, because there's sometimes security loopholes that providers then quickly try to fix, but often with outdated devices, a lot of people are still exposed for that for years after, and news about these loopholes spread, so more and more attacks also happen through these, and then there's really not too much even a tech provider can do if the user's device is compromised, and somebody's basically seeing whatever you type and read on your device. Then on the server side, on the product side, for some of your service providers, they can't do anything about data being stolen there. And linked to that also, of course, things that probably all of us have heard before, using safe passwords, not just the random 1 2 3 4 5 or things like that. And maybe raising awareness also in your team that this is very sensitive data that you need to be careful with. So also a lot of attacks that happen are really so-called social engineering, meaning maybe somebody will call some of your staff members and ask them about a certain case, and then if your team is not aware that something like that might happen, they might just at that instant not think about it and share a lot of information just through the phone of what somebody's asking, or they might share their password if somebody is writing them a weird message or something. So it's also about the mindset of the whole team working with these softwares, that they're aware that things like that might happen, and they need to really be thinking who to share that data with. And then maybe a third consideration that really came up a lot over the last years. I first really became aware of that with the whole GDPR data protection regulation that has been highly promoted in the EU. So they really look at the whole picture of data protection, so the technical measures and these other safeguards, but they also stress one point, that you should think of which data you really need to collect, and maybe avoid collecting some sensitive data. So really making up your mind, what's the information you do need, and what is maybe something that might be interesting, but you don't really need it, and it might also create some risks. I don't know if you work with different communities, maybe the religious background of these people is essential for how you provide your service, and how you evaluate your program, then you should collect it, but make sure that this might be sensitive and is well protected. But then maybe also that is really not really a matter for your program, then maybe you should not even collect that information because it might create harm if it gets exposed. So thinking of really trying to collect as little data as possible is also one best practice around data privacy and data protection, because what you have not recorded, of course, that can also not be stolen. And even with the best security practices, there's always some risk that data might get lost and exposed.
Right. Thank you for that, Sebastian. I think these are very practical suggestions that you've shared today. And just building on that, the whole problem with data security. So where should organizations actually store their data so that they can ensure data privacy and security? Should they go for cloud storage? Should they just store everything on their hard drives? And when should they consider a paid option over a free option?
Yeah, that's very practical questions, I think, that we're struggling with everywhere. I mean, whatever data is not online is also somewhat at less risk of being stolen and exposed. So if you have some files just on your computer, and then maybe you need to worry about creating a backup, maybe having a external hard drive that you can store the data to, that is a decent solution, I think. Although then also the question comes in, okay, who can access that computer? Maybe some of your beneficiaries, some of your students are using the same computers as your staff members in a small organization, and then it might become a problem that these confidential Excel files are just lying on the hard drive, and kids are quite savvy in finding out these things. I still remember how we in our school times circumvented all the protections because we knew more about computers than our teachers. So I think there's also risks involved in just having the basics, but usually it's always good to keep it simple. And if you need just basic storage, there is a lot of even free options out there from some of the big providers, whether it's Google Drive or Microsoft OneDrive or Dropbox, or all these providers that provide you free storage, and then you can share the files with your whole team, which is also quite useful. And you have like a backup option built in because they take care of that. So I think that's generally a good system, because then you don't have to worry much about how to keep the storage safe. And there's inbuilt security things like two-factor authentication, where maybe you need to enter OTP if you register a new device on
Sorry, is this?
Provider should already think of that, that there's backups in place, and that the data is not only secure but also safe in case something goes wrong, which I think is another point in case to just choose your providers that they are experts in what they do. And as I've seen some organizations also thinking to build their own systems, that seems like a smart choice, maybe a cheaper choice in the beginning, but often there's so many things downstream that can go wrong, that's also a dangerous option that I would actually advise against. So relying on professionals who have set up great systems already is something I would recommend. And there is a lot of people out there that already help with that. And not the worst choice certainly is one of these big storage providers.
Right. That makes sense, Sebastian. Thank you for that. And there are a lot of advancements, a lot of emerging technologies in the market every day, in the social sector as well. Increasingly, we find tools that are based on AI and ML as well, that are designed for the social sector. And even if we put these ultra high-tech tools aside, the market is filled with a lot of competing data management tools that keep on adding new and useful features every few months. GIS mapping, advanced visualization features, and so on. So if organizations have the capacity, when would you recommend organizations to switch to a more advanced tool? What should be the tipping point?
So I think there's probably two reasons to switch to an advanced tool, and that switch might even be from something like paper or Google Sheets to a bit more specialized software, but then also from one software to something that tries to automate everything. And these two reasons I see is either you want to achieve more, you want to be more effective, have more powerful tools to really improve your program, or you realize that you're spending a lot of time with the data management and you want to make that more efficient, more easier. And if you have somebody who really is just responsible for collecting the data, then probably there's systems out there that can help you and free some time of that person to do more interesting and relevant work. So I think these might be the two key triggers. And then though, I would be careful also in how far I want to go. As I said in the beginning, step by step is probably a good approach. Start small, figure out whether this really helps you, and then think how you can build upon that. There's a lot of excitement around some of these new technical advancements, be it artificial intelligence that supposedly can take over your complete work and make everything better, or blockchain that would make everything transparent and avoid all corruption. But in practice, these things are often much more complicated and also less impactful than people might make them sound. There's a lot of excitement on the technical side because these are interesting developments, and from an engineering point, I'm fascinated by what's possible there. Right. But looking at our sector and the work that's happening in the field, I feel like often very simple solutions can already improve a lot, and I would focus on these rather. So if you move from your paper files that you collect just once a month and then put them in Excel to get an idea, if you move from that to just a basic data collection or case management tool that in real time gives you an update of what everybody is doing, then you can already improve your program a lot and see where maybe some issues are and how you can handle these. And that's the real impact I see that technology can do at the moment. And building things like artificial intelligence on top of that often needs a lot of technical expertise and a lot of data also to build that upon. So that's really only a choice for very large organizations that have the capacity, but also the data history to do something on top of that. And I think probably at least half the AI projects also failed to really achieve what they were trying to achieve. So I feel like that's still more of an research and excitement phase, and maybe after the hype has come down a bit, then it becomes more practical for organizations that have other things to worry about to really deliver to their beneficiaries, to then make use of them.
Makes sense, Sebastian. Thank you for that. And we know that Arm Digital is open source, and increasingly many tech solution providers are making their products open source as well. And as nonprofits, it's very difficult to decide the kind of tech solution to adopt. So are there any considerations that organizations should keep in mind when choosing between a readily available SaaS product and an open source solution?
Right. So maybe even adding that other choice that I've seen a couple of organizations consider to build their own system. Worked with a few NGOs that have had very complex Excel tools built, and they work pretty well, but then it's hard to get the whole team using them because Excel becomes complicated. So they were at the verge of, okay, maybe we should get an IT person to build a system for us. And as I said, this might seem like a smart choice. You already have some things built, and it might be cheaper to hire just one person to do that than get a professional software solution that's out there. But then there's a lot of things downstream that you probably haven't thought about, and that these professional technology providers have really done nothing else but thinking of how to make that happen and work over the last years. So I think choosing somebody who knows what they're doing and are doing this really at a professional level, that's probably the most important consideration to choose a technology. And we at Arm Digital built our system as open source. So that means like the source code, the software code that defines how everything works is public. Anybody can take that and build their own system upon it. Also, people don't exclusively rely on us to run the software. If we do things they don't like, they have the choice to find somebody else to work on that. And I really believe in that vision also. I mean, we're a social enterprise. For us, social impact is what we are focused on, not the money we can get out of this. So I really believe in that approach, that we should pool our resources and together build great tools that then other organizations can use as well, and everybody benefits. And that's at the core of that open source idea. But if, as an NGO, I have to choose a tool, that would only be a side aspect that I would look at, because in the end, as an NGO, you usually don't have the capacity to build upon these open source systems, even if they try to make things easy for technologists to extend it. This is still a huge task to expand on that. So as an NGO, you have other things to worry about, I think. So you should get a provider that offers you a good solution that just works for you and that gives you the functions that you need. So I would really compare the software tools from people who seem like they know what they're doing, and then choose the tool that works best for you, rather than thinking a lot about these other considerations of what's the background of things. But then, I mean, that's it's not an either or also, because Arm Digital is an open source software. Anybody can use that. But what we also do is we provide it as software as a service, so people can just sign up with us and use the software, and we'll take care of all the technology and the backups and the protection and everything we've been talking about so far. And in our sector, there's actually quite a few organizations that have that approach, that they really care about the social impact they can make, and being collaborative and a community project. And at the same time, they help organizations, of course, not completely for free, but I think for reasonable rates, to get that running and take all the technical challenges away from them. And in that sense, if as an NGO you have a partner that understands what you're doing, what you're trying to achieve, and helps you with that, it's probably well invested money also for something like that.
Right. I think that makes sense, Sebastian. And yeah. And, in picking up from, some a point that you said in the middle, in our experience, what we often observe is that before organizations, have their, say, sort of results framework or the impact measurement frameworks in place, they're already in the process of adopting a tech solution for, tracking their impact data. And, I just want to get your opinion on this as well. How do or can tech solutions support the capture of impact data without all this data design in place?
That's an interesting point, and I would love to hear more about your experience with that as well. But from our observation, if an organization really doesn't have any idea yet what they want to achieve, then it's very hard to use technology also, because somehow it needs to fit to what you're doing and serve some purpose. Just using technology for technology's doesn't make sense and is very difficult also to make that work. In the end, I think that picture of technology as an amplifier is something I really like. Technology is not good or bad inherently, also the big debates, but it will just like empower what you're already doing. And if you're doing great things and you know what you want to achieve, then technology can be a huge benefit. And if you're not sure what you want to do, or also for some people who are up to doubtful moral goals, then technology will also enforce that and maybe enforce and empower the chaos that's already happening. So I think you need to have some idea in mind already where you want to go, and then tech can enable you to do that better. While maybe technology can also help you, if you think of introducing technology, maybe that's a good trigger to think also of, regardless of the tech, what your indicators and your framework is and how to measure that. So maybe it can go hand in hand to some extent, but I think the process and the goals need to come first. I don't know how your experience is with that, helping organizations to make that step.
So I think we would also sort of say that it would not be very productive if we go to a tech solution before planning out, what we want to measure and track, the kind of insights that we want to generate. As the exact aim of using the tech solution would not be defined in that case. And once we design our impact framework, we draw out all our output, outcome, impact indicators. We can then think of the ways in which we want to collect data on these. So the frequency, the broader data collection plan. And once this is done, I think it'll be very clear. We will be very clear on what are the kind of features and functionalities we want from a tech solution.
Yeah, exactly. I think that makes it much easier to select the right technology then also and get that going. Although I would say you don't need a like extremely elaborate monitoring framework before using technology. As I'm saying again and again, you can start also step by step in small ways, and probably you're already keeping some kind of information about your work. So you can start with digitalizing that and finding a technology for that, and then expanding on that. So it can be a very simple idea already, that then you build technology on top. But some basic idea needs to be there probably.
Right.
And I mean, what I'm really excited about in the digitalization of data and using data in the social sector is not just this somewhat traditional monitoring and evaluation approach where maybe once a year you do a big baseline or endline study and all your field level workers are busy with data collection, and then they send it off and the donor gets a nice annual report, but the people in the field don't really get use out of that data. So what I'm really excited about and what we're trying to build with Arm Digital is a tool where the whole team, down to the frontline worker who's maybe teaching kids or checking health status of families in the slums, that these persons also get access to a simple to use tool, and they're not just the people having additional work collecting data, but actually they have a system that then also informs them back, shows them how they are doing, what they've achieved, or maybe the critical cases they need to take care of. So kind of really making data the foundation for your daily work, rather than just being a reporting chore that some external people require of you. I think that's what's more and more coming up, and what's really exciting, that we make data useful for everybody in the team to improve our program, rather than just reporting that off as an additional duty.
And that's exactly, I think, a point that we keep on repeating in most of our sessions. Unless we sort of involve all our team members in the whole data and impact process, it's always going to be like an external responsibility that has been added to their shoulders, and they're never going to see the benefits that come from tracking all this data. So yeah, exactly. I completely agree on that point.
Yeah, exactly, and that makes it really hard for anybody who's trying to get people to record the data.
Right.
But also, I think it makes the data you get out of it less reliable, because if people doing it reluctantly and maybe just once a month, then obviously the picture you get is not as clear and close to the ground reality than if people are just using a tool in their day-to-day work and kind of doing that on the side.
Right, right. So I think we're doing good on time. I think we have a few minutes for questions as well from the audience. If anyone has any questions, you could either post on the chat or just speak directly. You can raise your hand. Otherwise,
Yeah, may I ask?
yes, definitely.
Yeah, hi Sebastian, hi Mimansa. It was a really insightful session. I would just like to know about some data segregation tips or techniques, because we have data from beneficiaries, from our stakeholders, we have case studies, we have reports from previous years as well. We have like so many data, and when we want something from previous years or from previous quarter, then we find it difficult to find it handy. So how do we segregate all of it in a way that they can be accessed later on immediately?
Yeah, I feel with you that that is a difficult challenge and a common one. I think there's probably no ready-made solution for everybody. It depends a bit on exactly what you do and how you do it. And if you have very different data, it doesn't. It's not a big problem in my opinion. Also, if you do some different systems, maybe have your case studies in Google Drive, which has a pretty nice search function also, and your beneficiary data maybe in a specialized system like Arm Digital. I think, yeah, where it becomes challenging is like if you want to have that segregation and easy analysis, then often like the simple tools reach a limit. If you have all these Excel sheets with all the last year's data, then it's hard to compare them and manage. And a system like ours, for example, Arm Digital, where we try to keep the historic data ready and take it out from your current view, but still have probably information you need. So, yeah, I'm rambling a bit. I don't think there's a ready-made solution for that, but with tools and some thinking, you can at least approach a pretty workable solution.
Okay. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Misbah. I think Mr. Pavandeep Singh also has his hand up.
Yeah. Hi, Sebastian. Thanks for the wonderful talk. Well, I'm glad that you have already touched upon the WhatsApp, as a marketing or a data collection tool. We are a startup, and we can really, we really wish to, since the population, the beneficiary we are targeting, they hardly have much choice with the social channels we have. So WhatsApp is something which is, can be really effective. So can you please develop a little more on how we can, tap some more data and then the communication with these people through WhatsApp?
Yes, I can try a bit. This is not the core of what I am doing, but I can really recommend the people at Glyphic. That is GLIFFIC, who are building a WhatsApp platform really for this kind of thing. And they're an open source social project as well, so very close to the needs of people in our sector, I think. But to elaborate a bit on it, here again, also I would start simple, and I mean you can just use your personal account or get another SIM card and try out messaging to people. I think that is a great approach to reach population nowadays. Do it manually, do it on the phone, get a few people to try that and then learn how people react. That's usually anyway a good starting point. So you get a lot of feedback and see what is working. And then when you really have an idea of how you want to communicate and how you can do that, maybe also in a broader setting, like generalize that, automate that, then only I would look at different tools on how to do that. And there again, it depends a bit on what you want to do, but like sending out messages to a lot of people automatically and also gathering their responses. There is a few tools out there, Glyphic being one of them. I would then all.
I think we lost it.
Yeah, I think we lost him for a sorry, Sebastian, I think we lost you for 10 seconds.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I didn't know who is frozen, whether it's me or you. Yeah, so my last point was,
yeah,
people in the sector are very helpful. So reach out to some of the products or initiatives that you feel like might be helpful. And I'm certain you will get a video call and explanations and pointers, even maybe to alternatives if it's not a good match. So don't hesitate also to reach out to people.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I think we have time for one more question. Anyone else? Okay, I think then on that note, we would conclude today's session. Thank you so much, Sebastian. It's been wonderful to have you with us in the session. You've offered many valuable, very practical insights and recommendations, and these can be utilized with, by all the organizations in the sector. And thank you to all the participants in the audience who have joined us for this session and the other sessions in this 4th series of digital dialogues by Toolbox India. Thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. Thanks for everybody joining in also with their questions. And it's great to see that a lot of organizations are thinking of how they can use digital tools as one thing in their bucket to solve the challenges you all are working on. So it's great to see that, and hopefully it was a bit helpful what I was able to share.
Definitely. Thank you, Sebastian. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day ahead.